Dang it, I did it again. There's another memory that's at the end of this chapter of the orientation. So we'll do that before we start the next one. It is my freshman year, and Morrie is older than most of the other teachers, and I'm younger than most of the students, having left high school a year early. To compensate for my youth on campus, I wear an old gray sweatshirt and box in the local gym and walk around with an unlit cigarette in my mouth, even though I don't smoke. I drive a beat up Mercury Cougar with the windows down and music up. I seek my identity in toughness, but it is Morrie's softness that draws me. And because he does not look at me as a kid trying to be something more than I am, I relax. I finish that first course with him and enroll in another. He is an easy maker. He does not he doesn't he does not much care for grades. One year, they said, during the Vietnam War, Morrie gave all of his male students A's to help keep them from their deferment. I began to call Morrie Coach, the way I used to address my high school track coach. Morrie likes the nickname. Coach, he says. All right, I'll be your coach, and you can be my player. You can play all the lovely parts of life that I'm too old for now. Sometimes we eat together in the cafeteria. Morrie, to my delight, is even more of a slob than I am. He talks instead of chewing, laughs with his mouth open, delivers a passionate thought through a mouthful of egg salad, and then the yellow pieces spew from his teeth. It cracks me up. The whole time I know him, I have two overwhelming desires to hug him and to give him a napkin. Now it's time for the classroom. My apologies. The sun beamed in through the dining room window, lighting up the hardwood floor. We had begun talking for nearly 2 hours. The phone rang yet again, and Morrie asked his helper Connie to get it. She had been jotting down callers' names in Morrie's small black appointment book. Friends, meditation teachers, a discussion group, someone who wanted a photograph of him for a magazine. It was clear I was not the only one interested in visiting my old professor. The Nightline appearance had made him somewhat of a celebrity, but I was impressed with, perhaps even a bit of envious of, all the friends that Morrie seemed to have. I thought about the buddies that circled my orbit back in college. Where had they gone? You know, Mitch, now that I'm dying, I've become much more interesting to people. You're always interesting. Oh, Morrie smiled. You're kind. No, I'm not, I thought. Here's the thing, he said. People see me as a bridge. I'm not as alive as I used to be, but I'm not yet dead. I'm sort of a in between. He coughed and regained his smile. I'm only one of the last great journeys here, and people want to tell me what to pack. The phone rang again. Morrie, can you talk? Connie said. I'm visiting with my old pal now, he announced. Let them call back. I cannot tell you why he received me so warmly. I was hardly the promising student that had left him 16 years earlier. Had it not been for Nightline, Morrie might have died without ever seeing me again. I had no good excuse for this, except the one that everyone does seem to have for these days. Seems to have. I'd become too wrapped up in the siren song of my own life. I was busy. What happened to me? I asked myself. Maurie's high, smoky voice took me back to my university years when I thought rich people were evil, a shirt and tie were prison clothes, and life without freedom to get up and go with a motorcycle beneath you. Breeze in your face, down the streets of Paris, into the mountains of Tibet was not a good life at all. What happened to me? The 80s happened, the 90s happened, death and sickness and getting fat and going bald happened. I traded lots of dreams for bigger paycheck, and I never realized I was doing it. Yet here was Morrie talking of all that wonder of our college years as if I'd simply been on a long vacation. Have you found someone to share your heart with? He asked. Are you giving to your community? Are you at peace with yourself? Are you trying to be as human as you can be? I squirmed, wanting to show that I'd been grappling deeply with such questions. What happened to me? I once promised myself I would never work for money, that I would join the Peace Corps, and I would live in a beautiful, inspirational place. Instead, I'd been in Detroit for 10 years at the same workplace, using the same bank, visiting the same barber. I was 37, more efficient than in college, tied to a computer and cell phones. I wrote articles about rich athletes who, for the most part, could not care less about people like me. I was no longer young for my peer group, nor did I walk around in gray sweatshirts with unlit cigarettes in my mouth. I did not have long discussions over egg salad sandwiches about the meaning of life. My days were full, yet I remained much of the time unsatisfied. What happened to me? Coach, I said suddenly, remembering the nickname. Morrie beamed. That's me. I'm still your coach. He laughed and resumed his eating, a meal he had started 40 minutes earlier. I watched him now, his hands working gingerly, as if he were learning to use them again for the first time. He could not press down hard with a knife. His fingers shook. Each bite was a struggle, and he chewed his food finely before swallowing. And sometimes it slid out of the sides of his lips so that he had to put it down while what he was holding to dab his face with a napkin. The skin from his wrist into his knuckles were dotted with age spots, and it was loose, like skin hanging from a chicken soup bone. For a while, we just ate like that, a sick old man and a healthy younger man, both absorbing the quiet of the room. I would say it was an embarrassed silence, but I seemed to be the only one embarrassed. Dying, Morrie said suddenly, is only one thing to be sad over, Mitch. Living unhappily is something else. So many of the people who come to visit me are unhappy. Why? Well, for one thing, the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves. We're teaching the wrong things. And you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work for you, don't buy it. Create your own. Most people can't do it. They're more unhappy than me, even in the current situation. I may be dying, but I'm surrounded by loving, caring souls. How many people can say that? I was astonished by his complete lack of self-pity. Morrie, who could no longer dance, swim, bathe, or walk. Morrie, who could no longer answer his own door, dry himself after a shower, or even roll over in the bed. How could he be so accepting? I watched him struggle with his fork, picking out a piece of tomato, missing it the first 2 or 3 times. A pathetic scene, and yet I could not deny that sitting in the present was almost magically serene, the same calm breeze that soothed me back in college. I shot a glance at my watch, force of habit. It was getting late, and I thought about changing my plane reservation home. Then Morrie did something that haunts me to this day. You know how I'm going to die, he said. I raised my eyebrows. I'm going to suffocate. Yes, my lungs, because of my asthma, can't handle the disease. It's moving up my body, this ALS. It's already got my legs, and pretty soon it will have my arms and hands, and then it hits my lungs. He shrugged his shoulders. I'm sunk. I had no idea what to say, so I said, well, you never know. Morrie closed his eyes. I know, Mitch. You mustn't be afraid of dying. I've had a good life, and we all know it's going to happen. I may have 4 or 5 months. Come on, I said nervously. Nobody can say. I can, he said softly. There's even a little test a doctor showed me. A test? Inhale a few times. I did as he said. Now once more, but this time when you exhale, count as many numbers as you can before you take another breath. I quickly exhaled the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I reached 70 before my breath was gone. Good, Morrie said. You have healthy lungs. Now watch what I do. He inhaled and then began to count in a soft, wobbly voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. He stopped, gasping for air. When the doctor first asked me to do this, I could reach 23. Now it's only 18. He closed his eyes, shook his head. My tank is almost empty. I tapped my thighs nervously. That was enough for one afternoon. Come back and see your old professor, Morrie said. When I hugged him goodbye, I promised I would, and I tried to think about the last time I'd promised this. So then there's a flashback. Ooh, sorry about that. In the campus bookstore, I shopped for the items on Morrie's reading list. I purchased books that I never knew existed. Titles such as Youth, Identity Crisis, I and Thou, The Divided Self. Before college, I did not know that the study of human relations should be considered scholarly. Until I met Morrie, I did not believe it. But his passion for books is real and contagious. We began to talk seriously sometimes after class when the room was empty. He asked me questions about life, then quote lines from Eric Fromm, Martin Buber, Erik Erikson. Often he defers to their words, footing his own advice, even though he obviously thought the same thing himself. It is at these times I remember he is indeed a professor and not an uncle. One afternoon, I'm complaining about the confusion of my age, which is what is expected of me versus what I want for myself. Have I told you about the tension of opposites? He said. The tensions of opposites. Life is a series of pull back and forths. You want to do one thing, but you're bound to something else. Something hurts you. You know it shouldn't. You take certain things for granted, even though you know you should never take anything for granted. A tension of opposites, like a pull on a rubber band, and most of us live somewhere in the middle. Sounds like a wrestling match, I say. A wrestling match, he laughs. Yes, you could describe it that way. So which side wins? I ask. Which side wins? He smiles at me. The crinkles of his eyes, his crooked teeth. Love wins. Love always wins.